As someone working in politics in DC, what do you think about fake news?
I would use fake news as a weapon because it's out there. The Germans use chemical weapons, the British use chemical weapons. What are you going to do? That doesn't mean you like chemical weapons, it means you do what you have to do. I've tried some fake news. I don't even remember. We've tried some things. Yeah, there are terrible negative potential consequences, but so what? That's what I say. So what? What's the big deal? We've always taken the position in this country, let it all come out, let the people judge, despite the dangers.
But how can the people judge fake stories and lies? Or do you think we're in a post-truth moment?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, what is truth? You study philosophy. There is no reality, there's only perception. So when you say, are we in a post-truth moment, most philosophers on all sides would tell you there was never any such thing as truth to begin with.
There is this ecosystem that's growing now where people are actually confusing real and fake news, especially if they see it online. This post-truth culture that we're living in has real costs to the people who are victimized by those who come up with these theories and themes. People have suffered because of false news that's being spread online.
The summer of 2015 was really the first sign that there was something happening in our information space that we weren't paying enough attention to. There was a 2-month-long military exercise that was occurring in the American Southwest, Jade Helm, and this conspiracy emerged around it that President Obama was going to round up political dissidents and put them in camps in Texas.
Fake news. What do I think about it? A very old saying comes to mind: don't believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I find myself there a lot. I don't know what's real and what's fake. Here in Bastrop, it's a very close-knit rural community. Typical small-town America, hometown value structure. In 2015, back during the Obama administration, there was a huge amount of concern about distrust of the national government. And once people found out that there was going to be a major military operation in Bastrop County, a lot of people were, making puzzle pieces fit together.
We're going to be conducting the training exercise safely and courteously. We're not going to interfere with their privacy or their rights with this.
The Army says it's an 8-week training exercise in a realistic setting, but they're not saying much beyond that.
We began to get inquiries from people. Why are you allowing the military to come into Bastrop County? What's going to happen? And why are they coming here? And then all sorts of conspiracies were put together.
The truth is that it's an exercise for enacting martial law in this country.
This is conditioning for martial law and a takeover. And then I tuned into another show. They're saying the same thing. And I guess Alex Jones was right. There's been an awakening.
We happen to be kind of the clearinghouse of a lot of conversation. People would come here, it's like the pub to talk about it.
Somebody shares a story, someone else commiserates, and then everyone else jumps on the bandwagon. I think it has a lot to do with, you know, having a degree in Google.
Whether it's vaccines cause autism, Masonic lizard people running the world, Jade Helm, we want so hard to believe, even in conspiracies, that things actually exist, that there is an underlying deal, that we have some knowledge that other people don't. And we want to believe all that, but sometimes it's just not true.
I will be headed to Bastrop, Texas to report on the Jade Helm 15 military exercise. I don't trust the corporate media. I don't want somebody else to tell me what's going on. I want to go find out for myself. So I'll be
In my view, Jade Helm was a psychological operation to gauge the response. Will the people, be complacent when this exercise happens? Will they push back?
We're gonna go inside. See, this is what the corporate media does. They stand across the street and we go inside. Can't believe we're in here.
I believe in personal responsibility. If somebody reads an article and they go crazy because of that, because whatever issues they got going on, I don't know how I can, be held responsible for that.
There are many who made some pretty wild claims, and social media is the devil. So in my interest in open government and in transparency, I said, well, let's just have a town hall meeting and explain this to everybody. Colonel Astoria came, and we asked him to explain to everyone who was interested what exactly the operation was going to entail.
Jade Helm is simply just a challenging 8-week training exercise for unconventional warfare, and it's an exercise that will be conducted throughout Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah.
Would the Commissioners Court consider reversing their invitation to these guys? And would the court be offended if I told the Colonel that I didn't believe a single word that he just said?
Hysteria is a little strong of a word, but there were pockets of hysteria.
Does the housing of these troops in any part of the Jade Helm 15 military training exercise have anything to do with recent Walmart closings anywhere in America?
No, it was, again, everybody wants this to be something that it's not.
You had people that were otherwise normal people in the Jade Helm thing believing that there was an underground network of tunnels that connected all the Walmarts in Texas.
These are giant facilities that can house people. So people started speculating that, okay, these Walmarts are getting ready to be turned into concentration camps, detention centers, what have you.
Today, Governor Greg Abbott is choosing to assign the Texas State Guard to monitor the operation.
Commander Abbott states his reasoning is, quote, to address concerns of Texas citizens and to ensure that Texas communities remain safe.
You get a part of the citizenry worked up, and the governor reacted to it in a way that looked like the state government was taking this seriously.
The relatively quick jump of that information from conspiracy blogs to town hall meetings to the governor's office, I think was of great concern, certainly to the military and to our intelligence services. Recently, Michael Hayden, the former CIA and NSA director, talked about this, very clearly linking the disinformation campaign around Jade Helm to Russian information activities targeting the United States.
Russian bots, Russian trolls, combining with the American alt-right media, convinced a non-trivial portion of the Texas population that it was an attempt by the Obama administration to round up political opponents.
It was interesting to me that someone would tie what went on here in Bastrop County to this worldwide concern about Russian interference in American politics, but you know what? It's a small world.
In Texas, we don't compare our economy to other states. We compare our economy to other countries. The Texas economy is larger than Canada. It's larger than Australia. And get this, the Texas economy is even larger than the economy of Russia. That makes me more powerful than Putin.
was a test. And what all of it showed was we are in a weaponized information environment.
So we're at the point now where I don't think people can distinguish fact from truth anymore, or people are starting to make their own truth, and honestly, I'm okay with that.
I have about 8 different daily digests that come into my inbox every morning from different Facebook pages and other things that we've started tracking over time. And I scan hyper-partisan stuff from people who tend to propagate misinformation. It's basically just like starting your morning bathing in internet garbage is pretty much the deal. I have been looking at false stories since 2014. There were a handful of journalists and researchers who were interested in this stuff, but it wasn't what was the main focus of the world. And in the span of a few months, that completely changed. At the end of 2016 with Trump's victory. What we found was the core key time before Election Day, that fake stories got way more engagement than the real news stories about the election. And as soon as everybody, journalists, politicians, researchers, started scratching the surface, they were like, holy crap, look at what's here. And then right after the election, we had Pizzagate. Somebody walking into a DC pizzeria with a rifle and firing it off, and realizing that that was a result of this person consuming conspiracies and misinformation. I think that freaked a lot of people out.
My restaurant, I try to be like, everyone's invited, just have a good time, play ping pong, eat some great food. Families and kids are the people who like it the most because it's like, it's fun, they can run around.
Comet Ping Pong is a fixture here in Washington. Everyone knows this restaurant. People come from other parts of Washington to have pizza here.
We do have some politically connected people that come in here, and that is just something that happens. I mean, I have CNN news anchors who have been eating here for years. But what Comet is about is this is a safe space for people to come in and be themselves.
We host shows for local bands, queer bands. I think that one of the nice things about Comet is that there's space here for queer folks to be part of the identity of the restaurant.
I had this party for the 10-year anniversary. Everyone was invited, and we had the Attorney General of the United States and like Congress people and like kids and the musicians and artists. And that was in the end of October 2016. I looked at it at one moment and I just thought, wow, like we've really created something here. Like this place is special. And then quickly after that, we were slammed with this year-plus long, endless conspiracy theory.
John Podesta, who's Hillary Clinton campaign chairman, his emails are hacked and they get uploaded online, and a lot of conspiracy theorists start crawling to them. And based on these emails, they spin up this crazy conspiracy theory about Comet Ping Pong.
People on pro-Trump forums start going through John Podesta's emails, and they see these references to pizza. Now, these are pretty innocuous references. Do we need to get pizza for the campaign volunteers, that kind of stuff. And perhaps the first example we've ever seen of the creation of Pizzagate is on a Reddit post. Someone saying, I think we need to be looking at these clues for all this pizza stuff. And really from there, that's where it took off.
So inside the emails, they connect a lot of different things. CP, cheese pizza, people dissect it, they think maybe it stands for child pornography.
Various people on Reddit, sites like 4chan, become convinced that pizza is slang for essentially children to rape. And so then they see the exchanges with James Alefantis and John Podesta.
I had emailed with John Podesta about hosting a pizza party, fundraiser, cookout at someone's house.
And so people become convinced that Comet Ping Pong is like this child rape dungeon in the basement.
This was supported by George Soros and John Podesta and Hillary Clinton, and like everybody was somehow connected to this child sex trafficking ring at a pizza parlor that you could dial up and say the right food words and get your order of children.
It's just days before the election, and so tensions are high. It certainly looked like Hillary Clinton was going to win, and so Trump people are very feverish, and this was just blowing up. So I said, geez, all these people are just going so wild about it. I wonder if anything's happening at Comet. So I called him up.
I got a call from a guy named Will Sommer, and he at the time was working at the Washington City paper and asked me if I had read about this or know about this online conspiracy theory that Hillary Clinton and I were human trafficking from Comet Ping Pong. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I make a comment like, everyone is really up about this election and passions are high, and I'm sure that it'll go away in a couple of days. The election happens, and then actually what happened is the days subsequent to the election, these online attacks started escalating and increasing in volume. We started to get messages onto like our Yelp page for the restaurant, reviews that were really weird and weird Facebook things. I had put pictures of my godchildren on Instagram. Now, obviously, I would know better than to put anything anywhere, but these images were stolen from my Instagram, taken and put up as some kind of evidence of nefarious activities going on.
I just want you to ask yourself, why does this guy, I think he looks like he's in his late 30s, why is this coming on middle-aged guy have a photo of a random kid drinking milk?
Pizzagate, like so many conspiracy theories, it starts to echo on 4chan.
There are spaces that drive more extreme content. I would say 4chan is a bathroom may be too polite. Think of the rest stop on the interstate highway. 4chan is a dirty restroom. There's no toilet paper in the toilet roll. The sink has not been cleaned in months. And think about the kinds of things you saw on bathroom walls there.
It builds on the internet, then it starts getting picked up by various right-wing pundits. You know, Alex Jones starts promoting it all the time.
Pizzagate is real. The question is, how real is it? What is it? Something's going on. Something's being covered up. It needs to be investigated. So just call it.
InfoWars becomes the Pizzagate network for a bit.
The menu from Comet Ping Pong. Notice the symbol of the ping pong paddles and its clever resemblance to the FBI documents symbol for child love.
There were so many different entry points for this specific attack. I'm trafficking or abusing these children is one. The other was that I or Hillary Clinton or the Podestas were kidnapping and selling these children to retain our immense wealth. There was some that this idea that because I'm gay, I obviously must be molesting children or something, which is a historical perspective on gayness.
So many of the calls we've received, people saying, why do you like raping children? And being like, I know you're all gay. And that one is necessarily related to the other.
A lot of what fuels misinformation and what we call fake news is hate. It is essentially some group of people either misunderstanding or having some sort of violent feelings about another group of people. And in the case of Comet, those who decided to target James found a little bit of hate and malice in the piece of Comet that is welcoming to the LGBTQ community.
More and more we started receiving phone calls that ran the gambit of being just prank calls, I almost say, where people were like, can I get some kind of special pizza, or some ridiculous name? Something that meant to them something about pedophilia was code words, to just straight up death threats. People saying, gonna kill you, or we know what you're doing, we're gonna stop it, you're all gonna die.
We know where you live, we are coming to the restaurant, we're coming to get you, you know, you need to kill yourself. There was a specific one where someone said, I'm gonna come to your restaurant with a machine gun and kill everyone inside and like cut your guts out and watch you die on the floor or whatever. And I was like, this is scary.
What I was doing every single night was going online and checking Reddit, checking 4chan. Reddit had a new subreddit that had been started specifically for Pizzagate. It went from, within a week, 0 followers to 22,000 people who were subscribed to it. 1,500 of which were active at any given point, growing and growing and growing and growing. And even if they only spend 5 minutes a day trying to destroy my life, 22,000 people have more 5 minutes a day than I have 24 hours in my day.
There it is. There it is, guys.
So we're gonna go in and we're gonna infiltrate Comet Pizza.
I got a phone call from someone who said, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm a friend of yours, and a guy named Jack Posobiec is in there filming you right now.
I turned it off.
I understand that to you this is maybe like a game, but considering that I myself and my staff receive death threats,
It's not a game. It's not anything.
Are you reading these things that people are writing?
I can't control what somebody posts on the internet.
I read several posts on Reddit that said, I've had enough of this. If I don't post back here in 3 hours, it's because I've been killed. I'm grabbing my shotgun and going into Comet.
We were in real deep fear, like serious fear. These threats were so violent that I sort of like knew something would happen.
Like I've already told you, we have a duty to protect people who can't protect themselves, to do for people who can't do for themselves.
So it culminates with Edgar Madison Welch driving up from North Carolina. He's one of the people who's been consuming all this stuff, and he's become convinced that there really is a child rape dungeon in the basement of Comet Ping Pong.
He wanted to come up here and save these children. He's a father himself. He had 2 young daughters.
He was a classic InfoWars listener, follower.
You know, people want me to look into it. I may just have to take off a week and just only research this and actually go to where these places are and stuff. In fact, I'm looking at getting on a plane. I can't just say something and not see it for myself. They go to these pizza places. There's like satanic art everywhere.
Part of the pitch is get out there and help us unearth the truth. It turns people into a type of vigilante in which they're out there seeking what they think is justice. In the case of Pizzagate, a guy puts children in danger because he thinks he's rescuing children.
We had this restaurant filled with families eating Sunday afternoon, and Edgar Madison Welch walks in this front door with a loaded AR-15 assault rifle, fully exposed, also with like a handgun and a knife, it turned out, and like walks through this restaurant. My young staff, who had been under online attack, they immediately see him, call the police, and go like table to table, telling each table that they need to go, like leave the building. And so each table, the customers are like, oh no, we're fine. Like, we're here to support you. It's okay. Like, we'll just keep eating or whatever. And these kids are like, no, you don't understand. There's a guy here with a gun. So they evacuate the building.
This isn't a joke. Get out of the block.
Police have shut down the street, and riot SWAT teams are closing the building and the street, and leaves this gunman alone to search the restaurant or do whatever he's gonna do.
The first thing that he did was immediately walk towards the back room. I'm not sure what he thought he was gonna find back here, but I think that he thought that this was the place where Hillary Clinton would be, or he was gonna walk back there and find John Podesta or George Soros or someone, pulling things off of the wall, trying to pry apart the stage, flipping ping pong tables over. He was trying to break anything that he thought was obscuring his view. But he came over here to the only locked door in the entire restaurant, which is our employee closet. He shot through the door, which is a pretty dirty but innocuous employee closet. Houses our coats.
Realized there were no children being held here. Came out of the restaurant, came out with his hands up to a sea of police.
Hands! Hands!
We got a guy coming out right now.
Stand up!
We got a white male subject coming out of the location. Hands in the air. Don't nobody move. Don't nobody move. Stay where you are. Bring him towards you. I got him. I can come back. Keep going. Keep coming to my voice. Do not turn around. Stop. Stop. Get down on your knees. Get on the ground. Lay prone on the ground.
Sir, do you work there?
No, sir.
Are you
Who else is in the location right now? Nobody else.
Nobody else?
What were you doing in the location? Making sure there's nothing there. Making sure there's nothing there regarding what? Pedophile ring. Regarding what? Pedophile ring.
Pizzagate. He's talking about Pizzagate.
This could have been a lot worse. Someone could have gotten shot. Anything could have happened here. So this was something that even some of the most seasoned crime reporters had never seen before. That someone came in armed for battle, came in on a suicide mission, either knowing he was going to go to jail or might end up dead, but was willing to do that based off of fake, erroneous news stories.
Today, the term fake news has become totally weaponized and misused to the point that I think it's kind of meaningless.
We saw back in January 2017 when President Trump stood up at the news conference and called out CNN and called it fake news. From there, we started to see the term kind of just fall apart in terms of use.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question? You're attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Where we're at right now is fake news has most effectively become what Donald Trump has defined it as, which is media that's critical of him.
If you want the fake news media to finally investigate.
When he talks about fake news, that is one of the biggest applause lines that he gets at these rallies. Usually at that point, that's when the whole crowd turns to the media pen and boos. As a journalist, obviously, it's disappointing to see that kind of vitriol directed at the press.
Don't worry, I don't like them either, okay?
CNN is in the dumper. It's become synonymous with fake news. Nobody believes it anymore. We expect politicians to be fast and loose with the truth, depending on the day. We know that. It's a car salesman. But we expect journalists, newsmen to tell the truth. That's what y'all do. Let's just report the facts. And no, I didn't vote for Obama. Give me one thing he did to help me as a Texan, heterosexual and married man. Did he lower my taxes? Nope. Did he increase my freedoms? Nope. Did he help my white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid go to college? Nope. Donald Trump's trying to stop my culture down here from changing. Look around. His style of populism is working. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Why? Because he's giving us results. But y'all don't report that. The media's the public enemy.
Let me show you the one I really like about tonight. This sums it up. That's money well spent right there. Because it's fake news. They don't report the truth. Truth's reality. You want to start living right, report the truth. That's all we ask for. Thank you.
Well, I think fake news has become a very politicized term that is being used to censor conservatives. Evidently, because it's published in the New York Times, you believe it. If you do that, you're believing either government propaganda or mainstream media determined truth. And just because the New York Times published it doesn't mean it's true.
Jerome Corsi is this longtime Republican operative and really one of the modern creators of this internet and media-fueled smear campaign. In the 2004 election, he co-wrote this book about John Kerry's behavior on this Swift boat, promoting the idea that John Kerry, who was this Vietnam War hero, was actually like this big coward, promoting this really baseless claim. So now to swift-boat someone since 2004 means to create a lie and propagate it in the idea that it's going to torpedo them. And Jerome Corsi was the creator of that. Cut to 2008, 2009, Jerome Corsi is probably the most prominent face of the birther conspiracy theory. So the idea that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. It's like all of the giant conspiracy theories of the past decade or two, Jerome Corsi has jumped on. And either he created them or he really got into pushing them.
And what's nice about this is just with a laptop computer, a Fairly simple camera. It gives the average person an opportunity to establish a voice and to be heard.
I didn't look at CNN and say, I want to do that. I didn't go to Fox News and say, here's my resume. I want to put on a suit, and after Tucker Carlson, I want to sit there and read my news. I didn't say that. I didn't go to the New York Times and say, I want to write stories for you. I looked at all of those things and I said, you guys are all fucked up. Whatever it is that you think is journalism, I think is fucked up. So this is how I'm going to do it. Wake up, everyone. If you are forwarding articles from Newsweek, from the New York Times, you have become a zombie propagandist. I find it intriguing that even investigating it, questioning it, becoming a forensic examiner of evidence, you get ridiculed. You're a conspiracy theorist.
You can disagree on all sorts of interpretations about a particular subject, but not when there's falsehood. When we study false news and disinformation, what we see repeatedly is things that in theory could be just interpretation get made up of discrete bits of narrative that are distinctly false. It's very clear that what you have here is a propagandist effort to try to achieve a result. So for example, the Seth Rich case.
Seth Rich is a young guy. He's working for the Democratic National Committee. And he's killed in July of 2016. Police in Washington have said it appears to have been a botched armed robbery, but they don't know for sure what happened.
There were a lot of robberies in this neighborhood around that time. People are speculating, well, what kind of a robbery was it? Because his wallet was stolen on him, his watch was still there. But when a gun goes off, that's going to draw attention. So his assailant is not going to stick around and try to get those valuables. They're going to take off. And that's what happened in this case.
Very early on, he wanted to do stuff that was involved in trying to make things better. There was 6.5 years between us. 100%. He was very much, the annoying little brother. And then as we got older, we got a lot closer just when we both got to the same spot in life. He had problems, he'd talk to me. If I had problems, I talked to him. So, we were each other's best friends and, always there for each other. He was the person that I knew I could always count on. And he was that, not just to me, but also to his friends. His over-the-top sense of humor. If you were having a bad day, no matter what, if it became his mission to make you have a good day, you just give in now. I had come back early from a vacation, and we had been playing phone tag since I got back. Obviously, that is something that I realized I would regret. Next morning, my mom called me. I remember her telling me that he had been shot and killed late in the night. I remember, collapsing on the floor of our townhome at the time, just in sheer disbelief.
In the political environment that existed in the summer of 2016, having a DNC staffer that was murdered to a certain group of people just could not have been a coincidence.
Somebody hacked into the DNC computer, and WikiLeaks just recently published a bunch of these emails, and there are a number of emails in which senior officials of the Democratic National Committee can be seen conspiring against Bernie Sanders.
Seth Rich's murder follows the leak of emails from the Democratic Party, and his death very quickly is linked to the leak. The idea is that Seth Rich himself was somehow in contact with WikiLeaks, objected to Hillary Clinton's assertion of control over the Democratic Party. He was outraged and released these emails. And Hillary Clinton somehow had Seth Rich murdered. I want to be clear, this is baseless, but certainly Julian Assange of WikiLeaks stoked that speculation.
Our whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered.
That was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding.
Was he one of your sources then?
We don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion?
Julian Assange, it's convenient for him because it means he's not kind of a patsy for the Russian government. It means, you know, there was this brave whistleblower who gave him the stuff.
Julian Assange was the catalyst. And then online, on websites and message boards like 4chan or Reddit, even Twitter, it blew up.
The Seth Rich thing is really getting suspicious now.
This was an assassination. This kid was murdered for political reasons.
I think they want to do damage control with the DNC and the Clinton crime unit.
This is exactly the sort of killing you would expect from the Clintons.
The guy got fucking murdered after he leaked information to WikiLeaks.
There have been stories in which activists in the United States joined forces with the Russians to push the same stories. And, you know, the Seth Rich story is probably the leading example of that. They were both eager to deny that the Russians were behind the hacking of the Democratic National Committee.
Seth had access to a lot of the IT. I mean, he had the access. He had a lot of stuff. The question is, we don't know what he did with it. Frankly, we don't know if Seth was a good guy or a bad guy. We don't know if he was a leaker. We think he was a leaker. We just don't know. There's so many unanswered questions.
Jack Berkman is one of the premier hucksters who's latched onto this tragedy.
We'll show you here. Here's the office over here. This is it. This is the nerve center, man. So come down here. This is the doggy's room. Fake news is a weapon. And we've even tried to use fake news. Fake news is a good way to drive a story. You know, you put up a site instead of New York 1, New York 2, and people believe it, and they reprint it, and it gets reprinted. It can be an effective tool in driving a story, you know? People use it. It's become a tool of war. It's like it's World War I and it's chemical weapons. People are using them, so you use them, you know? So that might be the analogy.
Jack Berkman, who's a Washington lobbyist, he sends out some legendary press releases in Washington. Reporters are always saying, you know, did you see the latest Jack Berkman press release? Because they're so absurd. In the past has attached himself to other dubious causes, including he tried to get gay players banned from the NFL.
There are four theories. One is what the police say. It was done in the street, street thugs. B, the Russians did it. C, Hillary and the Democrats did it. D is kind of everything else. We're conducting our own investigation.
He's doing all these crazy things, like he's doing a reenactment of the murder. He teams up with some undergraduate students at George Washington University, and they come up with the idea that the most obvious explanation for Seth Rich's death is that a hit squad killed him. I mean, it's absurd.
You have a dead DNC staffer that can't defend himself. It's a good opportunity to make statements and, you know, try to use that.
And when we ran sentence analyses of the media, you really see how Seth Rich pops up as an interference pattern on the right when everybody else is talking Russia and impeachment.
DNC leaks came from the inside. It wasn't hackers from the outside at all.
And of course, Julian Assange has specifically denied receiving any information from the Russian
Precisely.
government.
This whole Russian collusion narrative, which is, I think, actually quite a foolish narrative, that the emails were stolen by Russia from the DNC. These are premises that have not been validated. Yet the left runs with them as if they were gospel truth.
We know that by January, you had the entire intelligence community on board saying that it was the Russians. You know that the Mueller indictments have very specifically indicted both Russians responsible for the trolls and Russians responsible for the hacking. And when people say, well, we don't absolutely know with certainty, what do they want? Do they want to be in St. Petersburg watching every Russian troll engaging in every act? I mean, there are levels of proof that no reasonable person would ask for. It was the Russians.
The speculation that you saw online was given fuel by places like Gateway Pundit, InfoWars, Alex Jones, but you also see it pop up on Fox News.
Back with a Fox News alert, a brand new bombshell in the murder of that guy right there, a DNC staffer. An investigator now says Seth Rich was in contact with WikiLeaks.
Fox News on the website publishes a story that there's new evidence that Seth Rich was in fact the source of the leaks. And what you see is the whole network, from the local affiliate in DC through the main cable channel mobilized around this story.
Newly discovered evidence shows that the 27-year-old former DNC employee was in fact communicating with WikiLeaks.
And we can really trace how a rumor that starts on Reddit ultimately makes its way to Hannity. And you can just literally follow, from the first to the last, this propaganda pipeline. We see the Russians, we see the alt-right activists, we see the commercial clickbait sites, and then you have at the very top a set of propagandists whose commercial interest and political interest are aligned to go out, look for all these stories, and bring them to the mainstream of Fox News.
If it was true that Seth Rich gave WikiLeaks the DNC emails, wouldn't that blow the whole Russia collusion narrative that the media has been pushing out of the water?
I mean, Fox does some good reporting. There are good, honorable reporters that do good reporting, but Sean Hannity is essentially a consultant for the president.
By the way, all those people in the back are fake news.
Spewing the president's views to his huge audience on Fox, and it's just like hook, line, and sinker. Sean Hannity says, and it must be true.
And of course, Fox News is in the attention business, and so there's a sort of fake news laundering that is occurring.
To date, there has been no new evidence that has come out that would justify the original story in the first place, let alone this constant resurgence.
It's not just words, and you're not just pushing something, like you're having real effects on real people. It's hard enough to process the thought of a family member being murdered, but very quickly went to, that I took money from WikiLeaks, that I'm cooperating with a hostile foreign intelligence service. Where's this even coming from? Being directly accused of being involved in any of this just turns our world completely upside down that was already turned upside down from the rest of the conspiracies. I still have not been able to sit there and really properly grieve the fact that he's not there. The number of times I've wanted to pick up my phone and describe this absolute ridiculous situation that's going on, the person I would call would be my brother.
After extraordinary backlash from journalists, and especially from the Rich family, Fox withdrew its story. They said it didn't meet our standards. What they didn't do was apologize. You had a family who had been told their son had essentially committed a crime, an assertion for which they had no proof and no evidence. Sean Hannity not only hasn't apologized to the Rich family, but he hasn't disavowed it.
Out of respect for the family's wishes for now, I am not discussing this matter at this time.
I have no clue why they won't say it, pushing out false statements and not being willing to accept that they were false after being proven numerous times false. Doesn't make sense to me.
Now the real question is, who's to blame? Are we going to say, oh, look, Reddit did this? Or are we going to say, oh, look, Hannity did this? When people started looking around, what happened? The answer always fell on what's new, and what's new was the technology.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg will testify in front of a joint hearing of the Senate Judiciary and Commerce Committees today. Senators will demand answers from Zuckerberg about Facebook's failure to protect millions of users' private information.
They've actually added extra seats to this hearing room to accommodate all the senators who are going to be questioning Zuckerberg today. 44 of them. Zuckerberg is going to be in the hot seat for hours.
If you think about Facebook specifically, there's more than 2 billion people around the world that log into it every month. There has never been anything like Facebook in the history of humanity. There are ads there, there's news there, there's your personal life, your friends.
If he was to honestly say that he would no longer be selling any data, and if he would own up to it, then I think that
They've done better than anyone else on the planet by sucking in every piece of information about you and what you do and what you think. And it's sort of like a digital fence. They've gotten everyone to paint the fence, with your data, and they benefit from it.
It's designed to actually give so much information about us individually so that Facebook can turn around and sell insight into what kind of communication will best manipulate me to do what someone else wants to do.
As Facebook has grown, people everywhere have gotten a powerful new tool for staying connected to the people they love, for making their voices heard, and for building communities and businesses. But it's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm as well. And that goes for fake news, for foreign interference in elections, and hate speech, as well as developers and data privacy. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
There's a lot of things that have been going on at Facebook for a long time, of people who've covered it a long time. And a lot of them were around privacy violations, sort of sketchy use of data, always pushing the envelope, growth, growth, growth.
We're here because of what you, Mr. Zuckerberg, have described as a breach of trust. A quiz app used by approximately 300,000 people led to information about 87 million Facebook users being obtained by the company Cambridge Analytica.
So how's that possible? I mean, their systems are very good at detecting scrapers, spam accounts, and things like that. It's kind of mind-boggling that they weren't able to detect this, and I think the reason is because they didn't care. Not that, they were being malicious, it's just that it was something they were not interested in.
They had built a system where they didn't know what people were doing on it, really. And when malevolent actors get involved with a platform, you began to see how easily manipulable this platform was just by using it the way it worked. The Russians, they were a customer of Facebook. They used the tools that were built in this country to create discord and dissension across our nation in lots of very important areas. And some people, like Donald Trump, say not one vote was shifted, but that's not true.
Personally, I think the idea that fake news on Facebook, of which it's a very small amount of the content, influenced the election in any way, I think, is a pretty crazy idea.
So they moved from it was crazy to think so to okay, there was a little thing, and then there was more, and then I don't believe any of that. The only reason I don't believe it is because I don't think they know.
These unverified divisive pages are on Facebook today. They look a lot like the anonymous groups of Russian agents used to spread propaganda during the 2016 election. Are you able to confirm whether they're Russian-created groups, yes or no?
Senator, last week, we actually announced a major change to our ads and pages policies that we will be verifying the identity of every single advertiser.
Specific ones, do you know whether they are?
I am not familiar with those pieces of content specifically.
That's the way it was architected. It was architected to be a platform free for all, where nobody had responsibility except they got all the money.
Probably a lot of the people involved in the hearings didn't actually understand the technology and the implications, and so, it's hard. If you don't really understand what's happening, you can't really question.
Let's say I'm emailing about Black Panther within WhatsApp. Do I get a Black Panther banner ad?
Senator, Facebook systems do not see the content of messages being transferred over WhatsApp.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what I'm asking.
Everybody went in knowing they had 4 minutes or whatever to ask questions, and they were very focused particularly on privacy concerns. And nobody wanted to waste time on fake news, on Russia, on foreign actors.
When you sign up for Facebook, you sign up for terms of service. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. It says...
What's about these terms of service? What? Like as if terms of service were our biggest national emergency. Oh my God, you can't read terms of service. Like, who cares? Who cares? Like, they were not focusing on the problem at hand. It was just a ridiculous circus, and so therefore Mark came off well because he didn't, vomit on the desk or something. Like, he didn't, fall apart. He answered questions. But, I'll get back to you, Senator. That's an interesting question, Senator. He said nothing. He said nothing.
It will take some time to work through all the changes we need to make across the company, but I'm committed to getting this right.
I don't think they're malevolent people. Mark is lovely. He's polite, he's earnest, he wants to learn. It's just that their basic premise is that this is just a benign platform. These are the most powerful tools in the history of our planet. They are. They just are. When you have these tools, people are going to find ways to use them in ways that aren't more nefarious than other ways, or at least experiment around them. Once you have a gun, you want to shoot it. You just do. Like, that's what a gun is for. A lot of these technologies are guns, and they're going to be shot.
I think if you're Vladimir Putin, you wake up every morning and you laugh because they did some of this stuff to us. But the worst part of 2016 is the stuff we did to ourselves. And the worst part of what's happening now is we're still doing it to ourselves. The attack is now coming from inside the House. You have small campaigns using these techniques, where you have individual candidates using these techniques, where everybody thinks they need to use data better and more effectively to target the unknown voter or the hardcore voter or the radicalized voter one way or the other. When this is the environment, the Russians don't have to do very much. We're doing it to ourselves now.
If somebody has chemical weapons and you deem it necessary to have chemical weapons to deter the chemical weapons, then, this is a classic Cold War phenomenon.
On the Democratic side, there was a feeling that Democrats were behind in this race to use social media, to use technology. So there were some Democrats, it turns out, who were thinking like, we have to catch up in this race. We have to understand these tools. And one of the races that was sort of a natural to experiment in was the special Senate race in December of 2017. It pitted an extremely conservative Christian named Roy Moore, former judge, who's the Republican, against a Democrat named Doug Jones. There weren't a lot of other races going on, so Republicans and Democrats were very focused on this race.
You have this old school, leveraging racist rhetoric, all the women who are coming out and accusing Roy Moore of advances on underage women and really inappropriate conduct. That was feeding into all of Democrats' fears coming out of 2016. What if this is happening again? What if these guys are winning elections again?
So Reid Hoffman, the Silicon Valley billionaire, decides to bankroll his own pro-democratic campaign to dampen Roy Moore's chances.
We got $100,000. I don't know if that was Mr. Hoffman's money or what it was. All I know is that money arrived and it was time to go to work.
The Alabama Project, as I titled it, was an effort to use Facebook and emulate some of the tactics that had been used against Democrats in recent years.
Doug Jones didn't know that this was happening on his behalf.
It was an incredible run. It was an incredible election. It was a fun campaign, nerve-wracking campaign. Got a little weird on occasion. And then election night was just amazing.
It is absolutely deafening in here. This news just coming across the screen there.
Your election was won by about 20,000 votes, fairly small margin.
Oh, yeah, out of 1.3 million, I would say that was relatively tight.
Doug Jones won, absolutely. All I did was push a little from the outside. Our effort, we were hoping, would help Republicans not turn out to vote. So we created a page called Dry Alabama, a conservative, pro-Roy Moore, pro-Republican bunch of people who wanted to make Alabama dry again because the liquor laws had gotten too liberal. And our idea was that if you show this to moderate suburban Republicans, they will say, oh man, these Roy Moore supporters, they are crazy. And if these Roy Moore supporters are so crazy, then I just can't support him. That was the idea.
If you're like me, you're fearful for the souls of our brothers and sisters.
We made videos, and some of the videos were just mocktail recipes.
Try this moral take on a sinful beverage, a righteous mint julep.
I have a knack for creating new voices, and in this particular case, it sounded like a real conservative.
You were pretending to be somebody that you weren't.
Oh, sure. I was definitely pretending to be a conservative when I wrote that stuff. I felt empowered for the first time ever, really, to finally give maybe a Republican Party a taste of its own medicine a little bit. Fundamentally, the fakery is going to happen. It's happening to me, so why should it not happen to you?
It was December of 2018 when the New York Times article came out in which the allegation was there was a creation of some fake news type accounts to try to influence the election in my favor. And I was absolutely, one, stunned, two, pretty outraged, pretty angry about that, and immediately said so, and immediately called for an investigation.
At least two groups of Democrats that we've found out about were experimenting with essentially Russian techniques.
New Knowledge was part of that, so was Tovo Labs, and it turns out so was my little group. I did not know that at the time. The New Knowledge stuff, some of that seems pretty sketchy to me.
So let's start with the idea that reality is a construct of your mind. And what that means in a philosophical context is that all of us live in our own subjective reality.
A little cyber security company called New Knowledge based in Austin, Texas. They got some money from Reid Hoffman through a pass-through to this little project. This group created a conservative Alabamian Facebook page to try to influence conservatives, even though they were Democrats, they were liberals. These were the guys the Senate hired to do a comprehensive report, which was quite a well-done report, on what the Russians did in 2016, and here they're caught doing a little bit of themselves in U.S. politics. It's very embarrassing for them, very damaging for them. Among other things, they endorsed a conservative write-in candidate to try to draw votes from Roy Moore.
New Knowledge has gotten a ton of investment to conduct research to counter disinformation, and they themselves are currently operationalizing disinformation. It's really problematic.
It's still a little bit mysterious because New Knowledge and Jonathan Morgan, the CEO, I think, lying to me about various things. And it was kind of loosely run and involved multiple people, and I think some people had different ideas about it than others. But at this point, everybody's kind of like lying and pointing the finger at somebody else.
As the Secretary of State who has to certify election results, you must be concerned about these incredibly deceptive tactics.
Yeah, but seriously now, what we're talking about here is not anything different than what has occurred in U.S. politics or international politics in the history of political systems. The only difference is now people are able to do that in many people's minds more effectively because of social media.
So these tactics don't raise a special kind of alarm?
Well, the problem is you can't ever fully address them because you can't control the behavior of people who are engaging in that activity.
John Merrill, Alabama Secretary of State, is definitely part of the Republican machine, and he will settle things on terms that are favorable to the Republican machine. To some degree, I was hoping that there would be more reaction from the right. I was hoping that there would be more, oh, well, that's terrible what you did. But that didn't happen so much.
Are there actions you would take as Secretary of State to defend against disinformation in elections?
Well, if there were instances where the law was broken in regard to campaigning, we definitely will. But if it's simply someone doing a superior job to another candidate without going outside the boundaries of the law, then we can't pick apart what certain people are doing, because at that point, that's not making the most effective or best use of our time.
I can't say that we actually made the difference. I wouldn't go that far. But think of the math here. 3 million people saw this ad. If we affected 1% of them so that they ended up not voting, that's 30,000 votes. Doug Jones won by 21,000 votes. If we affected 1 in 1,000 of the people who saw that ad, that's 3,000 votes. That's about equal to Doug Jones's winning margin in 11 of the counties that he won. Imagine a bunch of these efforts, each whittling away just a little bit of the vote. That's all you need if you're talking about a close race. So yeah, I have a moral imperative to use these techniques against you. I absolutely have to, because otherwise, what's going to happen to my political perspective? It's going to be drowned out completely. The situation is that one side is obeying a set of rules that the other side will never respect, ever. And they will not change the rules until the rules start smacking them in the face a few times.
Two wrongs do not make a right. That's crazy. If all of a sudden the left sees we've got to do this because the right's been doing it and they start winning, then the right's going to up their game, then the left's going to up their game. And the next thing you know, there is nothing about this democracy that is real.
I wonder about how intense the spiral will be. I wonder if there's not something more toxic with all this. We don't know the effects of fake news. We don't know we don't know where this is going. It's changing by the day. It's the Industrial Revolution, but faster, bigger, and maybe more consequential. We don't know where it's going. I see myself drowning in an ocean that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I would prefer a world without fake news, but if others are using it, I'm going to use it.
NBC News is reporting tonight about an apparent effort to smear Robert Mueller. The plot appeared to be the latest and one of the more bizarre in a string of attempts by supporters of President Trump to discredit Mr. Mueller's investigation as a hoax and a witch hunt.
Jacob, I feel like I've known you for years. I'm glad you're finally here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today at the press conference, the main mission is to set the story straight. And we have to lay out in detail the accusations of our client. This for us is not about infamy, it's about legacy. We have to get this done. We have to prove that Bob Mueller is a sex offender, and I think we're going to do that. We'll do that. If we were seeking infamy and publicity, we'd be doing other things. This is too hard.
Yeah, believe me.
This is too hard.
We put out a notice offering a reward, $25,000 reward for whistleblowers, either within Bob Mueller's organization or within the FBI for bad stuff. We were looking for dirt on McCabe or Mueller.
Jack Berkman says he's going to bring forward a sexual assault accuser against Robert Mueller. And the accuser is going to come to this press conference. And so this is obviously an explosive charge. So you saw a lot of interest from media outlets willing to look into this if this were something that were true, despite even the fact that these people are fringe characters.
You're on like 10 magazine covers. You know that?
On the cover.
You're on the cover.
Well, I don't know how many people, how many publications have called me a Nazi this week. I mean, geez.
Jacob Wohl is a guy who rose to fame by being an obnoxious character on Twitter.
Jacob Wohl is a charlatan who is part of the bizarro world, Trump-verse information machine. He has wanted to be more important than he is for some time.
You know, I think it kind of hurt Jack's case to have Jacob also involved in it, because he was already such an untrustworthy character.
Any word from our gal?
Yeah, she's
not going to come. No, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You think she'll do it, and will she pick another day?
I think there's coin flip odds.
All right. Off we go. Let's say that she made a last-minute decision. I'll just say in the last 30 minutes, because of threats and other things, she's made a decision not to appear today, but we're going to go over the details of her sworn statement.
She's extremely scared amid the flurry of death threats. And she's safe?
You could say something like, we have her in a safe house. I'll leave all that to you. Yeah, and just say in the last 30 minutes, because I'm telling all these reporters she's there, otherwise they won't come. Yeah. You know this. Reporters they're lazy and they're dumb.
Right.
They go to Harvard, but they're dumb. They don't.
A journalism major. I mean, come on.
They're dummies.
Here's how you write an article. You can learn that in about 12 minutes.
Yeah, what do they teach them in journalism?
Yeah, exactly.
Journalism.
What the hell's this thing here? Is this for us?
It is.
Is this?
Uh-oh. We've got Antifa on the property.
Is this Antifa?
Hang on, I gotta take a picture of this. I gotta take a picture. They bust in a mob, it looks like.
They bust, really? What?
Look at that. They
What,
bust in.
Antifa? Who's busting?
They bust in a mob.
Jesus, look at this, huh? Wow, we must rate, you know?
Yeah, I'm Jacob.
You're Jacob.
Who are you?
Jacob. I'm Adam Goldman, New York Times.
Adam Goldman, that's right. I think you followed me on Twitter recently.
I
Or
did.
did you? Yeah. Yeah, looks like they got a rent-a-mob Soros bus here.
How do you know that?
I just saw it out the window.
So that is a rent-a-mob Soros. How can you say that? I'm sitting behind a wall, and they're like, ha, 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 here's a Soros-funded bus bringing protesters in. And I said to him, that's just a bus.
It looks to be that's what it is.
That
would
looks,
fit,
so you
it
have
would
no
fit the
evidence.
profile.
Wait, let's just get
I
straight.
said it looks
you have no evidence to suggest that is a Soros mob bus, but yeah, you're saying.
Sorry, you gotta be careful what you say. This is just chatter between two guys.
I got you. Right. There's a bus outside. You're making a claim that it's a Soros mobster bus.
Probably is.
Probably. Then he goes and tweets it. Tweets a picture of the bus. He's just created fake news. You see the toxicity that ends up on Twitter and on other social media, and these guys are the creators. It offends me as a journalist, somebody who spends an enormous amount of time trying to get to the facts that they're polluting real news.
I'm on the train, Amtrak headed to D.C. from New York to go to this press conference. It's in the Roslyn Holiday Inn where Jack Berkman normally holds these things. And it comes to light that the accuser's not going to show up. It's not surprising that this isn't panning out, right?
Will Summer at the Daily Beast.
Will, good to finally meet you.
You as well.
See you on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, you as well. So what's the deal? No accuser?
We're gonna go right in right now.
All right.
Yep. See you in a sec. All right.
Well, so no accuser today, huh?
No, what's happened, we'll talk about that. She's received a lot of death. She signed a sworn statement this morning.
How's she? Who she is?
I'll let Jacob tell you about that. She got a lot, number of them. We have to think about the threats, like Will just said. How did she get threats if nobody knows who she is?
Hundreds of threats. They said they're going to come here and cause trouble.
But they've all asked, how did she get threats if no one knows who she is?
He is going to be, we're going to take 5, 6, 7 questions. We're not going to take unlimited questions. That's how this thing falls apart.
Okay, good idea, good idea.
Questions, that's the key.
Now, do you want,
And don't call him the New York Times guy that's sitting right behind me. He's a rat bastard. He's trying to throw this whole thing off.
Gotcha. Wow, boy, this is tough. This is tougher than NFL gay. This is tough. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Berkman. This is Jacob Wall. There has developed in the last week, as I'm sure all of you have noticed, a rather tragic and sad backstory that somehow I or Jacob or others paid or attempted to pay some woman for coming forward. None of this is true.
So they come out with this affidavit from this woman named Caroline Cass.
The report is put together by this organization called Surefire Intelligence. And this goes online before the press conference.
And so that was where a lot of people started digging. On its website, this looked like a pretty legitimate organization at first.
It says that they were former spies and things like that work at Surefire Intelligence. And there are numbers, supposedly different bureaus around the world. And so if you reverse search the number, it was registered to Jacob Wolf's mother.
We had a reporter here who was on the phone with Jacob, and he said, "Are you sure this isn't just a front for you? You're not, Surefire Intelligence is a real thing." And he's, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Well, as it turned out, pictures on Surefire Intelligence of their employees were people like Christoph Waltz, a Hollywood actor, some models. Head of Surefire Intelligence, he was a kind of shady looking guy on his LinkedIn page. It was really dim, but someone just brightened it in Photoshop and it was just a picture of Jacob. So as people kept realizing how fraudulent Surefire Intelligence was, that was the setup for the press conference.
Jacob and his firm went through the most intense vetting of any woman in one of these situations, and I've represented other women in these situations, as you know, that I have ever seen.
And we determined that the accusation was credible, or we wouldn't be here today.
First of all, I want to stress, no one is questioning Ms. Cass's account here. We didn't know her name until 20 minutes ago, okay? We're questioning you two, both very uncredible people. And here's what I want to know.
No, why do you say we're uncredible?
You know, you had all the Seth Rich stuff, whatever. My question is for Jacob. Why were you so shady about Surefire Intelligence? You told one of our reporters you didn't run it, there was this alias, there's all these made up people. What's going on there?
The investigation at that point was still in flux, and it was important that I preserve my anonymity as I move through it.
But if you want your anonymity, then why are you doing this press conference now? Like, you could have just gone to the New York Police Department, right?
Well, a lot of that is up to Caroline. At the time, she made a decision for whatever reason. We didn't know her at the time to not report it to police.
But is she reporting it to police now? Like, are you going to the cops?
Yes, we're in the process of doing that now. Let me say something about it.
When do you expect that to be wrapped up?
So this is ongoing. This is ongoing.
Police report is supposed to be filed. Probably, I would think, by the end of this week.
Yeah.
The end of next week, next Friday.
You filed that with NYPD, correct?
We have not done it yet. A lot of those decisions are up to my client. I'm just the lawyer. We are still in the process of gathering evidence.
The idea was that Caroline Cass had met Robert Mueller when she was at a hotel bar in New York a couple years ago. And she claimed that Mueller basically made her go up to his room and sexually assaulted or raped her. Now, there were a couple holes in this story, probably the biggest being that there's a newspaper article about Robert Mueller being in D.C. that day because he was doing jury duty.
There's an item in the Washington Post from that day that spots him. It's one of those sightings around town columns that shows someone saw him at jury duty on that date. Are you suggesting the special counsel planted a story in the Washington Post?
You have information in front of you as to his whereabouts.
Wait a second, was he only at jury duty? Sometimes people go to jury duty, but they're also somewhere else. Was he only at jury duty? No, hang on, it's not funny. This is not a laughing matter.
You basically literally said someone can be in two places at once.
It felt like you had left reality and entered the right-wing media universe, like a physical version of it. Maybe I had gone through a portal when I walked into the hotel and ended up in this weird right-wing place where Jack Berkman and Jacob Wohl were holding court.
Is the whole point of this to discredit Bob Mueller, and if that is the case, do you really think that would shut down the Russia investigation?
No, the point of this is not to discredit anyone. The point of this is to get to the truth.
Is her name spelled with an E or is it not?
It's spelled with an E.
It is with an E?
It is spelled with an E? Oh, that's right.
Wait,
okay. Hang on. You'll figure it out. Okay. Miss Cass is...
No. You don't get to say that. You brought us out here. Tell us her name and all the identifying
right
information.
below. If I need to spell it out...
You know, we go to a lot of press conferences, and they can be adversarial. You can have this back and forth debate during these news conferences, but you know you're dealing with genuine people on the other side, and you're just not confronted with this blatant bullshit conspiracy. And you ask yourself, I'm a reporter. I've been doing this for 20 years. Why am I sitting here?
You know, my mission here is not to establish a narrative. It's not to follow an agenda.
Wait a minute.
It's to bring forth. Hang on. Excuse me. It's to bring forth the facts and let the facts speak for themselves, and that's what we've done here.
Wait, one last question. This is important. Where was Mueller's security detail on the day he was hitting on this woman?
Guys, you know what? We're gonna wrap it. Thank you.
We'll see you guys on the way out.
Thank you, guys. We've done enough, guys. I think that's enough for today. We have another conference coming soon. With Caroline. As soon as we get her scheduled.
You always say there's another press conference where you're really going to give us the
What's going on with the Seth Rich conspiracy, by the way?
It worked out well because
Where's your witness for that? You said you were going to bring a witness last time.
We're only here to discuss Caroline today, not other matters.
I want to discuss your credibility. You don't have much credibility because you...
Whose credibility?
Your credibility.
My credibility.
You said you're going to bring witnesses. Some civilians.
Hey, Jacob. All right.
Why can't you show us a document showing that you're representing her? How are we supposed to know that you're representing this person? We have no evidence.
Well, we do.
Hey, Jack, how did you and Jacob wake up on this? So it seems like he had the person first, then he came to you, or what happened?
We'll just say it's synergistic. We'll leave it at synergistic.
The whole thing was a circus. The only serious thing was what they were trying to do, which is slime Robert Mueller with one of the worst things they can accuse him of. It got people talking about Robert Mueller and a sexual assault allegation in the same sentence.
They meant to tarnish Bob Mueller's reputation to undermine his investigation into the president. What Berkman and Wohl were doing was not only knowingly dishonest, and they know that, it was corrosive and destructive. This was about throwing shit on the wall. That's all they were attempting to do, to throw shit on the wall and get somebody to write about it. They would have been very satisfied at the Times had just written, this is nonsense, because they would Google Jacob and he might have come up on the top search, and I mean, he doesn't care what context his name is used in, does he? Doesn't seem like it.
Are we trending? That's the real question. Are we trending? I'm sure we're trending.
I mean, I really was offended by the whole thing. You know, I could come back to the Times, and the Times trusts my judgment. And I said, I'm not writing about this. I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to go try to find this woman, see if there's any there. It's the same standard we would treat Kavanaugh's accuser. You need to find a victim, talk to the victim, interview the victim, and then determine if this is actually real. But I'm not writing about this news conference.
Mainstream media needs to understand that it is operating in a propaganda-rich environment. There are no two realities. There is an intentional deception on one side, and there is an honest, if imperfect, process of trying to get as near the truth as we can on the other.
Today in the red chair again, in the same place we talked 2 years ago, is Tristan Harris, the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology.
We spend about a fourth of our lives now in artificial social systems, meaning in these digital environments. And that's just on screen. I mean, when you're off screen, you're still thinking thoughts that came from that artificial social environment. Conspiracy theories on these, magnified by these platforms times a billions of people. It has completely fragmented our truth. And more importantly, the scale of the disinformation and misinformation people tend to underestimate. I don't think you've had Guillaume Cheslow on the program, but he's the ex-YouTube recommendations engineer. He works with us. And his research showed that Alex Jones was recommended 15 billion times.
Right.
There's a cover-up going on. They are pulling videos of this young man, a David Hogg. He's on the fake news, CNN, known for staging things. And he says over and over again, I am not a crisis actor. I am not a crisis actor.
Right-wing conspiracy theories going viral about David Hogg, a 17-year-old Parkland shooting survivor. The unsubstantiated claims say he's a crisis actor, a trained actor who takes advantage of tragedies for political gain. Tuesday, the conspiracy went viral on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Are they crisis actors? I mean, I don't know. I think the possibility exists. A picture of Emma Gonzalez tearing what appeared to be a constitution. Was it really a constitution? Was it, what do I think about it? I think it's pretty disgraceful. Why would you tear up the Constitution?
Well, so in fact, that photograph was fake. It was photoshopped.
Okay.
She wasn't holding it.
I got you. Knowing that that was purposely photoshopped and faked, yeah, that's more upsetting than the fact that she was allegedly tearing up the Constitution.
Facebook, the city without signs and police forces and garbage, that's the city they built. What company wouldn't shut down absolutely provable false information? They create the platform where it gets spread and then are like, oh, what can we do? They hide behind the First Amendment, and they are not the government. They can make choices, they just don't want to.
To say fake news, in other words, I don't want your news because it's fake, is antithetical to the principles of the First Amendment. You can't say fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. That's what Justice Holmes said, because it could lead to people being hurt. But if someone gets up and preaches revolution and there's no imminent likelihood that there's going to be any violence resulting from that, then that speech has to be tolerated.
First Amendment says the government can suppress speech, but there's no reason that platforms or communities can't say this kind of commentary is beyond the pale, and people who insist on saying this are going to suffer a penalty.
They're not the federal government. It's not a public square. These are private entities. They can do what they want. It's just more convenient to do nothing. It's more profitable to do nothing.
I'm worried about the future for others because what happened to me can happen to anyone. A more vulnerable person or institution like Comet would have been taken down right away. These online weapons that are directed at different people and institutions have lasting consequences and do destroy people.
In the case of Pizzagate, now, to my mind, when Facebook finds something like that, they should shut it down. Why did you build tools that allow someone to do that or allow it to iterate and iterate and iterate? What tools could you build where that isn't iterated again and again? White man, younger, runs Silicon Valley. If you don't ever feel unsafe in your life, you do not understand lack of safety. You do not build that in. I had someone at Twitter talk to me about they had gotten attacked online. First time happened. And they were like, oh, that was pretty bad. And I'm like, welcome to the world of women. Welcome to the world of people of color. Welcome to the world of marginalized people. This is what it's like every day. If you could think of a really awful thing that could happen with your product, you need to figure out ways that it doesn't have as much damage. They have not spent enough time doing that.
Oliver Darcy from CNN. InfoWars is pretty, I mean, I don't know if you've been to the page, but they pretty much make stuff up to get clicks and generate revenue and scare people. And I can't understand how Facebook can say we're serious about fighting fake news and false information, but allowing InfoWars and Alex Jones to profit off your platform by using it to generate a lot of clicks.
That was an ongoing debate that was happening about Alex Jones. When I did the podcast with Mark, we were starting to talk about Alex Jones.
The principles that we have on what we remove from the service are, if it's going to result in real harm, real physical harm, or if you're attacking individuals, then that content shouldn't be on the platform. But then there's broad debate, and...
Okay, Sandy Hook didn't happen is not a debate. It is false. You can't just take that down.
I agree that it is false. But overall, I mean, let's take this a little closer to home, right? Okay. So I'm Jewish, and there's a set of people who deny that the Holocaust happened, right? I find that deeply offensive. But I don't believe that our platform should take that down, because I think that there are things that different people get wrong. Either, I don't think that they're intentionally getting it wrong, but I think that
In the case of the Holocaust deniers, they might be, but go ahead.
Holocaust deniers don't mean to lie. And I was like, but they do. So that to me was sort of like, oh, you're not even sophisticated enough to understand that they mean to lie. That's the whole point. If someone who is running the biggest communication system in the history of the world, someone who cannot be fired, someone who has complete control over that system, does not understand what he just said, it really struck me as, it was a big uh-oh moment for me. The implication that they aren't malevolent. He knows they're malevolent. Come on. You can take them off. Like, it's okay. He's gonna get flack for it, but he gets paid the big bucks, right?
Alex Jones. He is the founder of InfoWars, and he is now feeling the heat himself. YouTube, Facebook, and Apple all announcing they're removing his content from their platforms.
What changed in that summer?
Apple did it. When Apple was like, enough, basta, that's done. Everybody else then goes, oh no, now if they do it, I guess it gives us cover to do it.
Apple last night removed the entire library of Alex Jones's podcasts from their store. And then we've seen throughout the day actually, tech platforms just basically remove Alex Jones from their websites. He had been banned by most platforms except for Twitter. And so he's on Capitol Hill yelling about censorship and conservatives under fire and oppression and all this Alex Jones stuff. And so I was going to cover Jack Dorsey, the Twitter CEO, testifying in front of the House committee. And I'm standing in line waiting to be let into this room. And out comes Alex Jones.
Look at this right here. The guy that goes around policing and calling for censorship and then claims that Trump's wrong, there's no censorship of conservatives or patriots. You are incredibly shameful.
How are you doing, Alex?
You're just, look at you, look, you are literally an anti-American, anti-free speech coward. You're gonna go down the history books at the Criminal News Network. This is one of the main people right here.
He comes over and starts berating me. He sticks multiple cameras in my face. There's a crowd that gathers of his right-wing supporters.
Come on over here, Drew. I want to get this guy on tape. This is unbelievable. I was literally saying I don't see the Criminal News Network here, but indeed we do, right there at the front of the line of the trough.
And for about 10 to 15 minutes, he is just yelling in my face.
I mean, look at those eyes, folks. If you want to see the eyes of a rat.
Alex Jones has chosen to latch onto Oliver as a hate figure. They'll pick people, and frankly, I don't think it's an accident that it's often a woman or a person of color.
Just look at this guy's eyes, man. That is who will rule your life. Look, I mean, he's even more evil looking in person.
Something to think about the decisions that you make.
The next day, Twitter bans him, and what their reasoning was
To my understanding is because he live streamed him berating me. He used a Twitter service to do that, Periscope. It violated Twitter's rules against targeted harassment. And so that was his last strike. That whole thing was sort of ironic. Yelling and complaining about losing his platform ended up leading to him losing his last remaining platform, being Twitter.
USA! You're the classic, hateful, vicious leftist who just wants to go out and attack people. Shame on you! Shame on you! You don't know nothing. You're disgusting. And look, you're unbelievable anti-free speech as well. You know nothing. Nothing. He's a public figure in his job in a public space who's lied about me and actively, full-time lobbied to have me removed off platforms and bragged about it. And so I see a modern book burner who also misrepresents what I've said, and I tell him that I think he's the embodiment of evil, a big corporation working behind the scenes and publicly to silence people. He is a book-burning monster.
When I first visited Alex Jones, he told me that there were snipers on the roof, which he then called me the next day to clarify he had made that up, and there actually aren't any snipers on the roof. His offices are in a part of Austin he doesn't want you to reveal or talk about. It's smoked windows, it's surveillance, video cameras everywhere. He has a kind of genius business model. He spews out these theories, and then at the beginning and end of every program, he's selling you something. And what he sells feeds that sense of paranoia and feeling of being besieged that a lot of his listeners and followers have. This is a guy who sells vitamin B, male virility products, and special kooky foods by spreading these theories that damage people's lives.
Sandy Hook, it's got inside job written all over it.
These are dead children, and he put out all this false information about it and kept saying it's free speech. No, it's not.
The Sandy Hook families have been begging for years to have this or that piece of video removed, this or that Facebook post, this or that tweet. And oftentimes they feel like that fell on deaf ears. Deplatformed is such a bloodless term. You know, I've been deplatformed. What does that even mean? And when you talk with the families, they'll say, you know what that means to me? For the first time, it means I'm not afraid to open my mail. You know, that I'm gonna see a threat from someone. And that threat coming in my mailbox means they know where I live. Just like James Alefantis, just like Seth Rich's family, they wanna know. Does the First Amendment actually protect the types of claims that have caused us such damage and such harm? And, you know, had one of them say, you know, this makes me feel like in 30 years, truth will be what pops up first when you search on Google. You know, if you type Sandy Hook into Google and this content isn't taken down and the purveyors of this content aren't taken down, that the first thing you'll see is that it was a hoax. So then these people have actually changed reality.
The only way you fight this sort of fake news is with the truth. I mean, I don't know of any other way to do it. You certainly don't fight it with fake news. You don't win that battle by playing their game.
One of the most important targets of propaganda, and this is true of Russian propaganda in Russia, it's true of propaganda in the United States, is to achieve this state of disorientation, this denial of the idea that there is a truth of the matter.
Challenging what is knowable is a fundamental way of upending a system and making it impossible to govern. It's also a way to ensure that you and I can't ever come to compromise on anything.
This community is really somewhere that's based in truth and reality. An online community is one thing, but a physical place where you're playing ping pong with someone, eating, breaking bread over the table, you're able to actually communicate with the people around you. So if someone were to say, wow, this crazy thing is happening, did you hear about it? across the table, one might say, oh, that thing isn't really happening.
God is going to throw you into hell.
It is hard still. We've been under continued threat. The daily messaging that I get now about people wanting to kill me or that I should be dead is, you know, a hard thing to deal with. So that's just part of my life now. But the community saved us. Like, it's the community. They, like, saved the restaurant, basically. And also were like, you need to open on Monday. And I was like, we're not opening on Monday. We're never opening. Like, this restaurant is not going to be open again, was my thought, feeling, and response. We called a meeting of the staff and was like, what do you want to do? And I said to them, you know, I can take every precaution. We would have armed guards at the doors, police surrounding the building to open our pizza place when we can. But I was like, I don't want to really open because I'm scared. And, you know, in my head, but I'm like, but what do you want to do? And this 20-something-year-old staff was like, we need to open because Comet is not going to be defeated or something, or like this community needs us. So we were able to open because they wanted to. And the support of this community, who also were calling the restaurant saying, we want to come there right now. Like, a gunman has come through and literally they're calling, being like, when can we bring our kids to have pizza? You can't close. Like, it's a simple recipe. It's family, community, and truth. Like, that's why we're here.